What's going on, guys? So you're looking at my family's old, I believe it's a 1947 Allis Chalmers Model B farm tractor. It is a 4-cylinder gasoline engine, and we bought this tractor about 10 years ago. Now it's been sitting for probably the past 8 years and it hasn't run. There's an upcoming Halloween parade, which I'd really like to take this to. We don't have a lot of old farm equipment in the area, so seeing this thing rolling down the streets for a Halloween parade, I think it would look really cool. Now, I've been reading a lot through the original service manuals, and something that I really appreciate about this tractor is a lot of the adjustments and maintenance and mechanical adjustments on this tractor are pretty simple to do. It just takes some basic reading comprehension, and basically any home halfway decent mechanic with a little bit of mechanical knowledge can really tune this thing pretty well. So yeah, just something to be mindful of if you do happen to be changing out an old battery in one of these tractors. By the way, this is a 6-volt battery if I haven't mentioned it before. But what's interesting is the frame is actually grounded positively. So the ground is actually insulated and the frame is hot. So that's just something to be mindful of. But anyway, I got the battery in there and the lights do come on, which with the old battery lights weren't coming on, so that's a good sign. Just got to throw a little fresh fuel in here. I put a little bit in here earlier. I cleaned out the sediment bowl. How these sediment bowls work is if there's any bits of crap in the fuel tank, this is kind of like a fuel filter. So what happens is the fuel comes into this bowl right here, and then up in the bowl is a screen. So before it can exit and go out through this fuel line into the carburetor, there's a screen which catches anything that floats, and anything that's heavy and sinks goes right to the bottom. So you just want to clean this out every so often. So I got to turn on the fuel as well. And here's a closer look at the carburetor. I'll show you the stuff I dipped in. I haven't tried this stuff before, but that's why some of the paint's missing. Carburetor parts cleaner in a can. It's just a paint can, and there's a basically like a little screen like you would see in a fryer for french fries and stuff like that, and you just put the carburetor right in there, let it sit for 20 minutes, and the directions say you're supposed to rinse it underwater and dry it off, and that's what I did. So hopefully that works. Oh, you know what I'm forgetting too? I also got to tighten up these two hose clamps here, so let me do that, put some fuel in there, and then we'll see if we can get her cranking. Alright, the fuel line's open, everything is hooked up. Let's see if we can get her going. See if she cranks first. Now, because I just cleaned out the carburetor, I'm expecting it to take a little while to get fuel kind of flowing back through there, but it shouldn't take too long. May need to get some ether, but give it a couple more cranks, see what happens. Okay, so what I have determined thus far is I believe I'm getting fuel. I'm not getting spark. I just took the spark plug out, tapped it against the frame while cranking, and I was not seeing any spark on that. So I'm thinking I have a spark problem because compression sounds good. Now, this wire right here interests me. This wire traces back to this switch box right here, and it goes to this switch right here. Now that black wire comes into the switch. See if I can get a better view at that. I just put a jumper on it temporarily, but that black wire goes into this part of the switch, and then the other part of this circuit, the white line, goes directly into this box. So that tells me that's positively grounded. So when you flip this switch, it allows power to go down this black line and I guess give power to this box. I guess it's a distributor, which I know near nothing about. Okay, so after learning about this tractor a bit, this box is actually called a magneto, and a magneto is basically mechanically run off the engine. So once you have the engine running, you don't need a battery to keep the engine going, but that magneto basically it provides power to the spark plugs, and it has to be timed correctly with the valves in order for the engine to fire properly. Now that black wire that I was focusing on, when you supply 12 volts to that black wire, it actually grounds out the magneto, and therefore it kills the engine. So if you have power going to that, you're going to kill the engine. In order to have the engine running, then you don't want anything going to that line. You don't want any power flowing through that line. So that's what I've learned about that wire. Okay, so there's a piece in this magneto that goes through this, there's the wire that goes through here, there's an insulation piece, so this is insulated from this block, and then there's a piece like this that ended up breaking, I guess due to high voltage, so we remanufactured something similar out of some copper tin, or some copper flashing, and we're going to put this in there and see if that fixes the problem.
(1947) Allis, Chalmers. September 4th, 2018. 71 years old. How could I restore it? Yeah! Attaboy. It sounds better with the valves adjusted than before.
The reason it wouldn't start ended up being was because I had the plugs in the wrong order. So with a Wicco mag, number 1 cylinder, number 2 cylinder, number 4 cylinder, and then the number 3 cylinder. So the firing order should be 1, 2, 4, 3. So I need to talk to you about this a little bit more in depth. So I always had the firing order in the right order. Now the firing order for this tractor is cylinder number 1, 2, 4, and then 3. Now here's what screwed me up. I was looking in the original service manual, and originally what came on these tractors was a Fairbanks magneto. Now with the Fairbanks magneto, the number 1 cylinder got plugged into the magneto on the top half of the magneto closest to the engine block. And then in a clockwise rotation, then it went 1, 2, 4, 3. Now, this Wicco magneto, I believe, is an aftermarket magneto. And with this Wicco magneto, the number 1 cylinder gets plugged into the top half of the magneto furthest away from the engine block, which is shown in the picture in front of you right now. So if you are having difficulty starting your tractor, check to see what magneto you have, and then from the instructions I've just given you, hopefully this will help solve an issue of your tractor not getting started.